Hello, I'm Paula Carnell and I'm reading chapters from my book Artist to Bees, which is the story of my journey from an artist to a bee speaker. And I'm sat here in front of my beehives and I've got bees buzzing around on the comfrey here, so it's lovely. So this is chapter 7 and it's called Healthy Bees versus Unhealthy Bees. I'm often being referred to as busy as a bee, particularly since my recovery, when life is throwing so many exciting opportunities to me. It came as a real awakening though when I heard of some research on honeybee colonies that discovered, in actual fact, healthy bees spend the majority of their time resting. 2 colonies were recorded deep inside the hive. One was isolated from any stressors, such as fiddling beekeepers, pesticide exposure, and left their own honey to feed on. The second colony was in more of a commercial environment, moved for pollination, exposed to a normal selection of pesticides and fed sugar solution. To the researchers' astonishment, this second colony spent none of its time resting. Looking deeper into this, they also found that the bees were maturing quicker, spending less time working through their various chores before leaving the hive on foraging flights for the last few weeks of their short lives. They compared this speeding up of their lives as equivalent to rearing babies with teenagers. Basically safe, but missing some of the subtle wisdom that comes from age and experience. Trying to find out why the bees weren't resting, the researchers discovered that the nervous systems of these bees was constantly running on fight or flight mode, our human equivalent of having a sympathetic dominant nervous system. When in this state, both bees and humans are literally unable to rest, as the body is on high alert with a constant bombarding of nerve impulses. This constant stimulation leaves the digestive system as an unnecessary burden to function, and the bees die twitching and quivering around the entrance of the hive, exhausted from a shortened but non-stop life. This information shook me to the core. How often have I been too busy to rest? How many of us have no time to meditate or simply stand and stare, as W.H. Davies had suggested in his poem Leisure? The connection between us and bees was even more obvious. What causes their nervous system to become so restless? A cocktail of pesticides and toxic chemicals, many designed to destroy the amino acids that communicate between nerve impulses and receptors. Many millions of minute doses of toxins brought into the hive via nectar and pollen of treated plants, which is then mixed into the wax used to make the cells in which the new bee eggs are laid. Imagine the egg and larvae incubating within the fumes of this killer cocktail. Traces of DDT, a substance banned over 10 years ago, have been found in wax comb. Could this mean that it still resides in the soil or in the nectar of plants? What if unsuspecting gardeners are still using out-of-date chemicals in their gardens, treating the very weeds that the bees go in order to self-medicate? Reading Helen Carson's Silent Spring informed me in more detail how the biology of insects, as well as humans, is severely affected as the toxic chemicals are stored indefinitely in our tissues, concentrating and multiplying their efficacy until released into the bloodstream with often fatal results. The other worrying statistic I heard was that each time a hive is opened, it takes the colony up to 10 days to regulate the temperature and fully insulate themselves with their antibacterial, antimicrobial, and so beneficial propolis. So that was chapter 7, Healthy Bees versus Unhealthy Bees, from my book, Artist to Bees, and I'm Paula Carnell.